Matt here with Rexburg Motorsports. I am showing how installation works on a KFI plow. This one's going to be on a 2021 Teryx. We are using the KFI Poly Pro 72-inch blade, the big one. We got the push tube right here and the plow mount, which is going to be vehicle specific. Those are kind of the three main parts for the KFI plow setup. If you do buy a different machine, you can keep your same push tube and plow blade. You just have to get a new plow mount for your machine. So that's one of the beauties of the KFI system. Some people think the poly blade is too light for plowing. This is not a light blade, and you're not going to be saving any weight going the 72-inch poly over the steel. You get a taller blade, you get a snow flap, the snow markers. I'll show you that once we get it built. And yeah, this one you can see here, it's 110 pounds, that box, just the plow blade. So it's no slouch, it's no lightweight. On this guy, with the winch is already installed. On this one I went with a Super ATV setup. Normally I do a KFI, but the winch on the Teryx's mount basically right on this plate on the bottom, and I wanted to have a little bit higher angle for the winch cable on lifting up the plow, just a better angle. So I went with the Super ATV winch and winch mount combo, which is a pretty good deal. But KFI has since released a bunch of different attachments you can attach to your plow push tube to help with the angle, or different rollers and stuff to make it pretty much accommodate any kind of setup you have. We'll get to it. This is the Terex plow mount hardware right here. It's got instructions. Only thing you have to drill is through, there's some plastic skid plate you have to drill under in order to attach the hardware, it looks like. So you've got a piece that's gonna bolt onto here, your plow mount. So that'll sit basically just right there. It angles up to give you the most clearance possible. All you need is a ratchet and a 3/8 drill. So okay, here's the plow mount plate bracket. It's just 2 carriage bolts. Okay, got that bolted up nice and tight. Next step is to install the mount plate. Okay, so first we'll bolt it on just with 2 bolts right onto that mounting plate that we just installed, that support bracket. Okay, I've got the plate installed, bolted up with these front 2 bolts right now. Don't mind the messy garage in the background. So all that you have to drill on this back part is just the inner bolts. So that one and that one that you can kind of see there. The outside ones clear. They'll clear that frame. So okay, got those holes drilled right there, and it just goes basically, I mean, it's right up next to the frame there. So then we're gonna take these bolts and lock washers, and then there's 2 little brackets that'll sit on top of the frame there. And I've got one side started. A tip, I would start on the inside one first, get that started on here. It'll make it easier to work on the outside one, and just barely get it started. Don't thread it in very much, or it'll lift this up too far to get the threads in on this bolt. So again, just barely get that one started, and then bring it over and pull this down, and then get this one started, and it'll make it a lot easier. One other note that I did, when this mount plate is tightened on the front all the way. You can see I loosened it a little bit. It'll allow you to get this up closer, tighter. These bolts don't have a lot of clearance, as you can see. So if you loosen that up a little bit, you can push this mount plate right up against the frame. Easier to get those bolts started. I got the plow mount on. Again, you can see the bolts there. Just 2 bolts on each side, holding the back portion on. You can see there, 2 on the back on each side, and then the front one right there. The push tube is mostly assembled. Comes with the pins to attach it to the plow mount. Also comes with some springs to attach to the plow, and then the hardware to attach the plow blade and the springs to it. So the only thing not on it, the main part, is this hook plate where you attach the hook. You can basically mount it in 4 different positions. You can mount it right here. You can flip it over so it's a little bit closer. I wanted it a little bit farther away, just where I've got the stopper. Just give me a little more room to play with. You can mount it here if you want it closer, and if your winch is mounted way high, you can use these 2 bolt positions and have it mounted way up here. This is the giant blade, 72-inch Pro Poly. Just to open this, I assume there is, yep, looks like the flap and markers and some hardware's inside there. So we just got to mount this to the push tube. There's some springs. The springs actually came with the push tube and not in the plow. And then the what do you call these? The skids came with the plow blade. So we'll attach those on. There's a nice little diagram. Suggested instructions. How you stack the washers on those, but pretty beefy skids there. And a beefy blade. I'll get this put together and get it put on. So temporarily I've got these springs on. These are just eye bolts. I have the nuts just barely on them, so the springs is loose, basically as loose as it can be. The plow mount just attaches with a carriage bolt on each side at the bottom. Then there's a little bushing, a washer, and a big old nut. It's like 15/16. So big old socket on that. And that allows that to pivot. Now the springs, even though they're on the lowest setting, they're pretty tight. But you adjust, there's a little bolt here. I'm going to tighten up these. That adjusts the angle of the default angle of your blade. So I'm just going to set it at default for now, which is the middle position of those little 3 spots. There's actually six holes, I guess. You can see there, you can see the 3 that right there. So I'm gonna tighten those up, and then once that's tightened up, I'll tighten up the spring bolts and put on the skids. Okay, here's the hardware that comes with the skids. Got the 2 skids, brackets that will mount on the plow. I will note it comes with 2 sets of bolts. The shorter bolts are for the steel blade. The longer 1-inch bolts are for the poly blade, which is what we have here. So we'll use the longer ones. And then you've got a stack of washers, a clip that will hold on the top, and some little rubber bushings. Okay, so I got the skid mounts on both sides. I'm going to use the 2 bushings, 1 washer underneath, and let's see, 4 washers on top. And then this little lock pin to hold it all together. See that? So that should not come off. And that's actually pretty tight there. Got the skids on. The blade is now propped up. This is the flap that comes with it. The instructions actually mention to install it with, there's a little bar right here that attaches the flap, and it's saying in the instructions, to mount it pointing up instead of pushing the flap down. So that's what I'm gonna do. Here's the plow markers. They go on each edge. Okay, got the markers on. Just 2 bolts, pretty simple. And the flap. This is what I'm talking about, where it recommends having this tilted up instead of tilted forward. That pushes the flap down. Not sure why, but maybe the flap lasts longer with snow hitting it. But that just uses carriage bolts all the way across. And we are ready for install. All right, here she is installed.